Welcome to your next step up the self-publishing mountain.
I'm Matilda Swift, author of quintessentially British cozy mysteries.
And I'm Samantha Cummings, author of young adult books about magic, myths and monsters.
I've written the books,
Changed their covers,
tweaked their blurbs,
tried tools from a dozen ads courses.
and I'm still not seeing success.
Now, we're working together to plot and plan our way from barely making ends meet to pulling in a living wage.
Join us on our journey where we'll be mastering the pen to snag that paycheck.
Hello, and welcome to Pen to Paycheck Authors Podcast. I'm Samantha Cummings, here with my co-host Matilda Swift, and we're here to write our way to financial success. We're two indie authors with over a dozen books between us and still a long way to go towards the quit the day job dream. If that sounds familiar, listen along for our mastery through missteps journey. Each week, we cover a topic to help along the way, and this week's topic is hyping yourself. But before we get into that, what are your wins and whinges of the week?
I sort of don't know. Like, I feel like many. Like, I feel like my life is very intense right now, in a good way. But just like it's coming towards Christmas. I know. Yeah, but next week it'll be calmer. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and it just feels like lots of it is good and lots of it is bad, and just lots is my life right now. If I had to pick specific things, which I do because we do it every week in the podcast, my whinge would be that I am annoyed at myself for procrastinating, but I'm really trying to come to terms with the fact that that is just my process. I'm someone who does not like to work when they have time to spare, and because I could be doing other things, and that if I and this is specific in terms of my writing right now. I'm procrastinating because I should be writing more, but I know I've actually got enough space in my schedule because it's coming up to Christmas. I've got time off and I'll have a bit of a relaxed schedule when I'm not working to catch up. So I'm sort of letting myself off the hook, but it's meaning that I'm doing other things. So sort of a whinge, but also I'm just trying to be more accepting of that. I'm a person who does not like to write when I'm not under a hard deadline. And my win is sort of everything. I feel like I'm really changing my interaction with other people in a really positive way. I've had a lot more interactions with authors recently in ways that have felt very productive and fantastic. And even though we, for example, missed our monthly meeting yesterday, was that yesterday? Yeah, because of the horrible storm cancelling the trains. We kept on it, and we did a Zoom version or an online version, and I sort of still felt like that is such a central part of my life now. That time when we talk together and talk about our careers, it just felt fundamentally so different to where we were at a year ago, and I've really been able to appreciate that now. We're coming up on the year mark. I just feel so engaged with a lot of authors and with my writing career much more than normal, and that feels like a big non-specific win, but that is my big where my head is at this week. How about you?
That's a good win. Yeah. I think my whinge is that we couldn't do our meetup yesterday because of the storm, which is I'm kind of one of those people that's like, it's just a storm, big deal, and then I'm seeing videos and I'm like, yeah, it's a pretty bad storm. But it did suck that most of the trains that were going out of where I live and coming back were just so hit and miss. So we couldn't see each other face to face, which I always look forward to. But I'm glad we did our own online thing because we had such a big talk yesterday. That was good.
Yeah.
But my general wins are that I was on holiday last week and had a lovely time relaxing whilst also working. So I did do working mornings. I worked from 9-ish to 12 doing writing and editing stuff. So it kind of felt like I was living the author life. I was just doing the stuff and making progress even though I was taking a break. And that always feels nice because I feel like I'm living that's my best self. When I don't have to go to an office and I can just do things on my own time. And I also drank a lot of mulled wine, so that was great. I also this weekend made some big steps in planning for next year. So I put my 2025 calendar on the wall. It's been sat in its box for about a month or two, and I've been waiting for the inspiration to think this is it. So I put my calendar on the wall. I have been thinking about when I'm going to put my pre-orders up on Amazon and tweaking synopses and emailing my cover designer and my editor and my formatter. They all got emails this weekend about next year, and I feel like that's insane for me.
Yeah.
I was like, I emailed them with a warning, like, this is really me. You're not getting scammed. I'm actually being organized. Lo and behold, miracles do happen, and only at Christmas. So I'm not gonna, no other whinges. I just feel like I feel like I'm building up speed in a way that feels nice. I wish I was going faster in some ways, but I do feel like if I was going too fast, I would spin out of control.
Okay, that is a good, reasonable position to be in. And sort of connected to the topic of today, feeling like full of energy and, pumped up, because we're talking about hyping yourself, which is far easier said than done. How are we hyping ourselves? What are we doing?
Yeah, so we had a big talk about this yesterday. We were going to record a podcast yesterday, but we had talked so much about it, we kind of needed to step back, and we moved the podcast recording to today, which is the day after. And it's so funny because I always feel like I'm constantly harping on and on about the same thing, which is, if I didn't have you to talk to and we weren't doing this, I would never figure these things out about myself. So when you try and hype yourself up, you have to really confront your insecurities. And what we talked about yesterday was we really kind of dredged up our insecurities. I didn't even realize that
it was
my
a
insecurities
full
were
therapy
so
session. Like
they all came up. I was very surprised at how I'd been holding myself back. And it was only from having that conversation with you yesterday about not feeling good enough and not feeling smart enough. And I'm sure everyone thinks this when they're writing books, because people are going to have to read what you have imagined. But I really feel like I have been holding myself back because of that, and I've been too scared to lean into certain messaging when it comes to advertisements and social media posts, and even just talking to people like other writers about what I'm doing. I've never felt like I was the right person to have particular conversations. And so that's kind of that realization really came to a point yesterday that I was really holding myself back. And today, because I've been mulling over it overnight, and all of today I've been sat at work, kind of half my mind on my actual work and half my mind on my heart's work. And I feel like I'm shifting into feeling more positive and secure in my own talent and ambition, that hyping myself up going forward isn't going to feel so bad. So before I kind of talk about more of that, how do you feel about hyping?
Yeah, so I think when we picked this topic, it seemed like a really black and white thing, right? We talk about this quite often. We follow a lot of other authors. When we come together, we spend a lot of time looking at other authors and then kind of looking at their social media strategies, or looking at their kind of any place where they talk about themselves and trying to figure out, how are they doing that? What are they doing? And we look at those, and so often our response is just how are they so confident about themselves? How are they just talking about themselves as if they really have written the best book ever? And so we were like, well, why don't we just work on a bit of hyping ourselves up together? And it's maybe easier to do for somebody else. So let's meet up face to face, and we'll figure out what in each other's work is a thing that we can really be pushing. And actually, yesterday's session was preempted by, during the day, we had both sent each other some templates of our Canva documents for our social media posts. And we realized that we both secretly thought about each other's, oh gosh, I can't believe I sent that. It's such trash compared to yours. And we both were like, oh God, I'm just terrible compared to you. And we both thought that's obviously not true. But it's so our automatic thoughts to think, gosh, that person is so much better than me, and they deserve to have positive outcomes, and I deserve to just be sat here ignored. So we'd already had that kind of revelation during the day of like we were both in a place where it wasn't maybe easy to see for ourselves like where we're at or think positively about ourselves. And then when we came to the conversation about hyping ourselves, I think we both realized that like I don't know how to do it. Like I don't know what I should do to hype myself up or even how I would hype somebody else up. And what and this was it was such a therapy session. Like I feel like this is one that we did not
Yeah.
need to record yesterday. It's just like that it was really us talking about why just why we were unloved enough as children. Like really deep things like who wronged us in like which teacher made us feel unconfident. And like a lot of stuff like that was really helpful to just have it to articulate. Like I always think there's such a benefit to articulating things. It's when they're sort of shadowy and in the back of your mind that they have so much power. And when you say them out loud, you're like, oh, actually that's I can deal with that. Like that's something that I in my head it was like a big shadowy scary thing, and when I say it out loud I was like, oh, I can handle that. So yeah, we talked around the topics a lot and around the topic of like why can't we hype ourselves up? Like I work really hard on my books. I've read other people's books that I think the writing's not as good, or I can see how some people would like them less than my books if they're this sort of person. And just everything very, very hedged of just like, I'm really trying my best and I think this works and I'm doing this and I hope it's okay. And really that feels authentic. And that is where we came to yesterday. It was like a lot of our conversation was around authenticity. That I am just not someone who can hype myself up because I can't sell anything at all unless I believe in it authentically. Like I've done a lot of sales jobs, and the only way for me to feel comfortable doing it is to authentically have to believe in something. So I can sell you anything at all if I think it is going to improve your life. So Sam, you had a great example yesterday. Do you want to talk us through the thing that I think it was so crystallized what we were talking about and like what we were thinking around authenticity? Do you know what I'm talking about? Can you tell us about it, or do you want me to fill in the gaps?
No, I have no recollection. What the hell
It was it was what's your like weird food that you would sell without reservation?
Okay, yeah. This was like a great conversation to have off air, and now I'll bring it on air. So
yeah,
we are both very food oriented people. I think a lot of people are. But just in general, I think like a fun thing to think of the one weird food that you love so much that you try to make all of your friends and family try. And think of the absolute passion that you put into the speech where you try and get somebody to like just have one bite. You'll love it too. You'll love it as much as I love it. I'm sure of it. And even if they don't, the satisfaction of them even just trying it is so good. And then it's just, I have had this conversation so many times. Me and my family are obsessed with something called pickled walnuts. I'm a pickle person. And I could talk about them for hours. And everyone that I meet, and me and all my family are the same. We're constantly trying to get people to try pickled walnuts. Like it's as if we have some sort of share in the company. You would think that we were involved because we are all so obsessed. And I think that if you put that much passion into your book sales, then like you should be doing that because you created something that you love. You should be trying to sell it to everybody who you think will love it. If you love pickles, you'll love this. If you love, like for me, it's like if you love things like Buffy, you'll love my book. And you should just be like launching yourself on on people who you know would definitely love this thing.
I think that's
like
specific
even just like talking about it.
It's the because you can't fake that. So, for example, I can't sell people pickle walnuts because I've never tasted it. I promise. You talk about them enough times that I promise I will try them. And in fact, the only thing that's holding back is they're a little bit expensive to buy a whole jar of. I will, yeah. But for me, I'm like, I know and I trust you that I will like them, but they're a bit expensive to get a whole jar of, and I think I want to wait till I've got like a specific reason I need them, and also maybe a little treat myself situation. And also, I'm prepared that I might genuinely not like them. All right, and I love pickle things, so I think I will, but like I believe you when you say they're this good. And the thing about like how authenticity I think ties into book sales, like you couldn't bring that same passion to like squid ink spaghetti, right? Another black kind of weird food, right? You could, if you had to run a market stall selling squid ink spaghetti, you might just be there all day in the cold and the rain and be like, it's spaghetti, but it's black. Isn't it weird? But if you had like a market stall with pickled walnuts, you'd be sold out in minutes because you're that passionate about it. And I think it can feel really hard to figure out, like, how do I bring that passion to my books? Because like they're no pickled walnuts. They're not like the best weirdest food anyone's ever had. So how do I find that passion? And I think one way that we came around to thinking about it, was like, the way you sell pickled walnuts to people is different depending on the person. And you're also really happy to counter their problem, right? Counter objections. So for example, I said, actually, I'm not that big a fan of walnuts. Like, I think they're fine. And I love pickle food. So I was like, oh, I think I would like that. But like, I'm not a huge fan of walnuts. You're like, they don't taste like walnuts at all. Nothing to do with walnuts. They're just delicious by themselves. And I was like, oh, they're really expensive. And you're like, yeah, but they're totally worth it. Like, it's a good treat for yourself. And you had these great objections, these great ways to handle objections, because you genuinely think that I should try them. And if you're pitching them to somebody else who loved walnuts, you might say, you know, if you love walnuts and you're not such a big fan of pickle fans, these are definitely worth a try. This will be the thing that get you into pickles. And you know all the facets of them, and you're approaching different people in different ways. And that for me was such a light bulb, right? Because we know with books, you're trying to write to market, right? As in, that's a good thing, that you want to say, I like people, I like human beings, and I would like them to be happy when they read my book. I'm not trying to give them a bad experience. So writing to market is saying, this is my little corner of the market, and I have learned enough about it to know that my book will please these people. But when we think about, or at least when I think about writing to market, I often think too big. Like, I'm thinking on a really generic level of cozy mysteries. And even when I drill down into like culinary cozies, and then we've drilled down further in our branding conversations to like, oh, I write like British culinary, mysteries, and they're kind of quirky and villagey. And think about the audience for that, though. I still think of like a really generic cozy mystery audience, because that's actually quite a broad section of the genre. And in my head, I just had this like kind of generic, and it's not like, it's not true, because I know a lot about people on my mailing list, and I know from conversations with them, they are a certain sort of person. Like, they are an older reader usually. They're usually based in the US. They tend to have, really passionate about their families. They tend to be women who are very smart, but maybe didn't have jobs that challenge them intellectually. So they really love that sort of book for that reason. Like, they love a mystery. So I've got a really good sense of who they are. But that's such a broad person. And how do I make that person interested in my books? And then so we talked around this a lot of ways. It's like, I feel like it's like I'm trying to sell pickled walnuts by just pointing at the jar and being like, it's walnuts, but they're pickled. You like food, try pickled walnuts. And actually, we really have to think about like how to get specific. And I need to break the audience down to make them more like really real people, because I read cozy mysteries, and I'm not an older woman. I'm not even in the US. And I know there are male readers of cozy mysteries, right? And those are sort of arbitrary ways of defining people, but it's like helpful to start to think that way. But like, they like different parts of the books. And that was like a absolute epiphany for me, right? So I love mysteries, but I don't love the part of them. Like, I'm not excited by the part of them that's kind of like about maybe warm community feeling and families. Like, that's nice, and like, it's cute, but it's not the thing that I have to have. What I absolutely have to have is like the following a mystery. Like, that is a thing that absolutely gets me going. So I think when I'm reading a mystery, I like the same thing as other mystery readers, but that's absolutely not true. And I've never figured out before that I need to find ways to appeal to really specific tastes inside a market. And I feel like I'm not entirely sure how to articulate this. I think one thing to think about is people often talk about how you should like write the best book, and then and then it will really appeal to readers, and they'll tell each other and they get on board. And it's like, yeah, but what are they telling each other about? And like, how are they finding you? What are they like? What are the things that they're finding? How do we hook into them? And so what I've been really trying to think about is like trying not to think of my audience as like a monolith. That's not just like this generic cozy mystery reader. I want to figure out hooks that are more specific, because general cozy mystery hooks, they're quite broad, and they're things like, oh, it's got a good community and it's set in a cute setting, it's got lots of cakes, it's got a good mystery. But if you're appealing to like someone who's very family oriented, you might want to play up like the community. That should be the thing that you're most playing up for them. And if you're trying to appeal to somebody who the thing they love about mysteries is the sleuthing, you should play that up to them. And I just had no idea of like, I just couldn't really conceive of how to meet those audiences or how to talk about the book in a way that was connecting to different sides of the same audience. And having thought about this yesterday, like what I absolutely feel like that is key to me selling my book, is figuring out that like I'm not trying to be all things to all people, even in this niche. I'm trying to explain to you why you specifically will like this part of this book. Like, do you like walnuts? Try it for the walnutiness. Do you like pickles? Try it for the pickliness. Do you like weird black food? You'll love this. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, because I'm also going to kind of talk about fatigue that comes in, which kind of dampens like the hype that you got for yourself. Is that if you're stood in a room and someone's like, okay, I'm going to let these people in and they're going to come and have a look at the walnuts that you're selling, and you're like really geared up and you start talking all the spiel, and everybody that comes into the room's like, I'm allergic to nuts. And so like you can be so enthusiastic, but if you're talking to the wrong people,
or even like they're coming in and they're full, they've just eaten a meal.
Yeah. So you know that your messaging and your enthusiasm is falling on deaf ears. They don't care. They are in no way ready or willing to try. They can't see themselves doing it in the future, because people don't think, oh, I'll buy that book because I'm going to read that in a few months. Like, people buy books because they lie to themselves and say, I'm going to read that next. We all do it. I do it every single time. That's the next book I'm going to read. Yeah. But nobody buys things like, I'll get that now because I'm going to read that. Like, maybe next month. So if you can't whip up excitement immediately, then that's just going to fizzle out so fast. And so talking to the right people is so key, just for like your own well-being, like your own emotional well-being as well, because you need to feel like you're like the messaging that you're saying and your enthusiasm, you want it to be met by at least some reciprocal enthusiasm. So yeah, like because of our conversation yesterday and talking about this, we both, I think, went away, and I don't know if you actually did what I did, but I went and wrote customer profiles for different platforms, pulling
so
out
organized.
like different things that I thought.
I didn't do that.
I know. Okay, well, that's what I spent my night doing last night. So I wrote, I think I did like 5 or 6 customer profiles, which focused on like the main selling aspects of my books, and I am going to use those customer profiles. I'm going to kind of make them all fancy and stuff. I'm going to use them in my messaging so that every time I go onto Instagram, I can think to myself, oh, I'm going to target Ashley today because Ashley likes books that are fantasy based, have like supernatural teen romance and some sort of strange magic system. I know she likes that, so that's what I'm going to talk about today. And I think just having that like so specific but exciting thing that I'm like, I know that I can hit those marks, gives me that feeling of selling. I'm going to like, OPs need to drop me some sort of like check for how many times I'm talking about pickle walnuts. So yeah, I can already, just thinking about like targeting those customers, those fake people, makes me feel excited in posting things on social media because I know who I'm trying to get to. And
Yeah,
it
and
just
Ashley,
feels,
for
yeah, I
example, she's
feel,
maybe not like the biggest fan of books about sisters and sister bonds, and like
mm-hmm,
you're not having to hit every single feature of your books. You're trying to say like Ashley
yes,
really loves this specific part of my book, and I'm going to drill down and say, Ashley, this
mm-hmm,
is what's going to really excite you.
yeah, don't worry about the rest of it. You'll get into that, but it's got
Mm-hmm.
this like shining, fun thing over here that you're gonna love, and it's gonna turn you around. Yeah, so I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like just talking about all that yesterday, and then me going away and doing that, I have this renewed excitement for, which is always what I'm looking for, renewed excitement for social media and ads
Yeah.
and emails and like all of it. I feel like something's slots into place in my brain, like something's
Yeah.
clicked.
Yeah,
So
me
what
too.
did
Because I think
you? Yeah.
I was so trying to be like everything to everyone, right? So saying like, okay, I've got this generic
Mm-hmm.
idea of a cozy mystery reader, and then it's almost like I'd got a sort of deck of cards I was trying to like throw at them of like, oh, do you like culinary things? Do you like small English villages? Do you like twisty mystery? Do you like baking programs? And like, here's a load of stuff. Buy my book.
Mm-hmm.
And not thinking of just like maybe somebody likes a specific aspect of the book, and like what you need to do is just very clearly try and target them with this thing. Um, and
Mm.
and so I think I'm not at the stage yet where I want to make customer profiles, because to me that's a thing like I've done at work, and that feels very day jobby and off-putting. And what I wanted to do was something that would
Mm-hmm.
bring me enthusiasm. So I started with
Mm-hmm.
a social media platform that I have not really used before, because I think it's not a big part of the traditional age range of cozy readers, right? So cozy readers do tend to be older, and so the place you target them usually is on Facebook. But I know plenty of cozy authors who are on TikTok, and there are many cozy readers on TikTok. So I thought, what I'm going to do to try and just like free myself up to explore the concept of a specific type of reader is try and make some posts on TikTok that appeal to somebody closer to my sleuth age. So I tend to write sleuths that are in their 30s. And so if I wanted to try and appeal to cozy readers who are that age, what would I do to appeal to them? And they're not quote unquote like young people, right? They're not kids. So I'm not trying to say I'm going to do like fun dances and try and get the hot new trends on TikTok. That's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is think like, what do they like? Like, how can I tap into their emotional hooks? And also, how can I write hooks to appeal to them? And that has been so freeing. Like, I'm not trying to sell my book. I'm trying to connect to a specific person. And it's someone who I understand, because I picked the audience that is closest to me. And so I've specifically been choosing like music that's from an era when I was young and felt fun and like free and exciting. I've chosen a format that's like using keywords that I know are really familiar to my generation. I picked specific parts of the books, and I've really highlighted the family conflict side of the book. So like, you don't fit in with your family, you've tried making a life away from home, and now you're having to come back. There's that conflict of, you know, you're returning back to your hometown, but you don't quite fit in. I'm just trying to do posts that tie into that, and not even necessarily with the thought that I'm gonna sell books on TikTok, but specifically because trying to hit that format, right? The format of like a catchy, hooky video that appeals to an incredibly specific age range has helped me so much to get a feeling of confidence with my audience. I've just been like, I'll draft a few different versions of posts and be like, oh, this isn't right, but why isn't it right? If I know I'm trying to target these people with this sort of aspect of the book, what other words do I need to use? What other language do I need to use? And I don't think necessarily that I will be TikToking in perpetuity. That's not a verb, is it? I'm so sorry, young people. I don't think I'll be on TikTok in perpetuity. It's not a place that I necessarily think I'm gonna make that my strategy. Um, and I might do. It definitely feels 1,000% easier and more fun than it has in the past. But I think that's partly because I am doing something for me with it. I am learning something with it, and I am exploring something that is teaching me something. And that has felt so useful. Even when I think about my newsletter, I think it is relatively generic. and it's about me, but it kind of keeps a nice even middle tone. And maybe that's fine, right? I think maybe your newsletter it has to be a place where you appeal to everyone, but I might try and say, could I bring in like little corners of the newsletter that are specifically trying to appeal to different people? If I know that a big part of the appeal of my book series is the family conflicty drama bits, I might put in things that are about, I was telling you off air, conflict, minor family conflict, like Christmas is coming. There's all sorts of slight fractious disagreements that are absolutely nothing at all. They're just like a bit of misunderstanding. Do I want to put in something like that? Or do I want to put in something that appeals to a different part of my audience? Can I get more personal, I think? And for me, I am incapable of selling something if I don't feel authentic about it. And having to drill down into my audience and different aspects of my audience is so helpful to help me feel like I'm trying to give an authentic sales message rather than be like, it's a book. You'll like it because you like books.
Yeah.
I just feel so much more engaged and really, really like I'm improving. I guess that's like quite a broad way of looking at it, but it does feel like this. It feels like a lever and pulling again, which I've talked about a few times that I felt really frustrated without it. And this feels like I am taking more of control.
Yeah, it's fun to get that feeling again. I say again, like I've never had that feeling about my own books, but it is fun to like be generating that feeling. Because I finished reading a book last week, and as soon as I finished it, I thought, oh, I know like a couple of friends who would love this book. And then it kind of dawned on me that I would be so willing to sell somebody else's book to my friends, and I'm not willing to put myself out there with my own book. I'm still kind of like wanting to get it out there, but feeling like I can't, because that's like it's like so big headed. Like, why would people like my book? It's so dumb. But I'm so willing to do it for other people, and that's bad business. Bad business. I need to be a good business.
I think that's also partly where that's also partly where like writing to market I think can be helpful, because if you know you have done things that your audience likes, you don't have to get all the way to that point where you think, gosh, I'm so good, I'm a fantastic writer, aren't I wonderful? All you have to do is get part of the way there and thinking, I know I'm a good writer, right? I have had enough people say this to me. I have seen enough pieces of my work from like 5 years ago and had a thought like, did I write this? This is good. Even though I can't feel that way about my current works at all, I look at them and I can only see the development and the mistakes and the bad days and the things I could have done better. Like, I'm never going to get to authentically feeling like this book in front of me is great. But if I just don't have to do that and I can think objectively, I know, despite the voices in my head saying it's not great and the things I remember about writing it, it is good. And I've written it to market, so I know there are these hooks in here and the tropes that my readers really love. I can feel confident authentically of saying, this will appeal to you for this thing. And for me, that feels so different to trying to say, this is the next best cozy mystery. Everyone's going to love it. Because that's not true. And I don't know why I haven't thought about this before in such a meaningful way, but it feels like such an epiphany to say, like, it's completely wrong to be trying to make really broad, generic statements for me, because I am someone who I can only connect in an authentic way. I just cannot talk. It feels incredibly uncomfortable for me, and like lying to say things that are like generically positive. And what I need to do is find small pockets of audience, and that I can feel 100% confident. If I tell you you'll like it for this reason, it's true, right? You will go and read it and you'll like that about it. And maybe overall the book isn't for you, right? You might read it and think, oh, actually that thing didn't quite resonate. But that part of it I have not lied to you about.
Because that is that feeling of lying is a block to believing in yourself, because you are constantly waiting for that one person to say, it's nothing like that. Like, you said it was like this and it's nothing like that. That's what I feel like. I feel like somebody's going to turn around and say, like, this is nothing, like, the story doesn't make any sense. This is nothing like you said it was. Because I'm still not sure that I'm talking to the right people. So I'm waiting for somebody who likes books about dragons to pick up my book and say, but it's not got any dragons in it. Well, obviously. because I
Yeah,
don't
what do you
write
mean it's
dragons.
fantasy? It's got no dragons in.
Yeah, fantasy, but no dragons. Like, because my messaging is so broad. I think we've all fallen in this trap, and I don't. It's not a bad trap because I like these posts myself. But you see the posts of a book cover, and it's got all the tropes, the arrows and the tropes. And everybody uses this marketing method, and I like it. I've used it before as well, but you're doing putting the most generic things you can think of in order to try and capture as many people's attention as possible. But unless you've already got an audience that is super aware of what you're doing and really interested, I don't think those posts are great. Like, I don't feel like those posts work for me whatsoever. I see everybody else doing it, but I've never really thought, well, of course they work for people who've got like 100,000 followers on Instagram and selling consistently. Like, for
but also people
just
who
doing well.
people who can fill in the gaps themselves, right? So say you see a book with the tropes outlined, and it is like dragons. I don't know what else goes with dragons. Like dragons, like war against greater power, secret magic, like evil family. Those are so generic that you think like, what is that for me? I like those things, or I like maybe 3 of those things, or 1 of those things, but I don't know. It's that itself. I'm never going to pick a book based on that, but like that image. Plus, I've read the person before. I've seen other book reviewers that I know and like hyping it. All those things add together, and I think I think I've definitely also fallen in the trap of like looking at those sorts of posts, which is like putting out the tropes or whatever it is, like something equivalent of like it's a generic marketing post, and thinking, oh, okay, I'll do the generic marketing post. That's a post that people do, or the same as in your newsletter or ads or like whatever it is. But like wherever you are, you see somebody who's doing the generic thing, and you think, okay, that's what you do. Then you put this quite generic post up, and then the people like. It almost feels ridiculous now, right? You're asking people to like look at something incredibly generic and they're like, well, I guess I'll give that a try. Like there's millions of books out there. They have better choices than like this thing that says like it's kind of like if Miss Marple was young. You're like, wow, I've got a book like that already. I've got a series that I like that already. I'm not gonna take a chance on yours.
Yeah.
And I just think getting specific it feels like you're narrowing your audience, but in fact you are increasing, you're going for depth rather than breadth.
Yes.
In a way that is very meaningful, I think.
Yeah, it is more meaningful. You're finding it's better to find 100 people who are super into what you're doing than 1,000 people who are kind of like, yeah, maybe. Like, maybe I'll try it. I'd rather have the 100 people who are like super into it and are going to be really hyped about it, and then they tell their friends, and then and then the wildfire spreads, and all of a sudden you're a millionaire and living your best life.
Yeah. And I think I've always been trying to, like, that's definitely what everyone's going for. Right? Everyone's looking for that 1,000 true fans concept that I can't even vaguely remember who came up with it. But it's like, yeah, if you could just have 1,000 true fans, that's how you get success, because those people, if you publish enough and you do various other money making things, like that's enough money, and those people will tell other people. Like, but I have always been sort of trying to sieve through the ocean of everyone to find 1,000 true fans. But my net is got like no consistent dimensions. Like my net is just like full of holes, or sometimes it's like dissolving in the water. Oh gosh, I'm back in tortured metaphor territory. I'm so sorry. But you know what I mean? Like, whereas what I actually need to be doing is like, yeah, I think it's like I've been trying to pan for gold, right? I'm trying to pan for gold, and you can pan for gold forever, right? Whereas what I actually be doing is like literally digging through the earth. I'm pulling out nuggets of gold myself, right? And they'd be like, that is, I'm gonna move aside all this dirt and physically pull out a gold nugget and like find it and cherish it and look for where it's going to be. And it's more deliberate than just like, I'm just going to stand in a river with a pan and just hope.
Yeah. Okay. As far as analogies go, I guess we'll take that one over the fishing net.
It's not my best.
It's not your best, but I get it.
Yeah.
I'm there. Yeah. Oh dear. Do we have anything else on this topic? I feel like it seems so obvious, doesn't it? Just to say like, oh, you should be looking for your audience. Like that's effectively it. Like if you have the right audience, and
Audience
obviously
is
that's
so
like a huge
broad,
thing. It's
right?
finding. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I have definitely been thinking of, okay, if I want to have big sales, I need to think of having a big audience. So then how do I'm like shouting into a canyon. Oh, I'm on the metaphors, I'm so
Here we
sorry.
go.
But
At
I'm
least
trying
you're
to make my tiny
sticking in
voice
golf
big.
country.
Nope.
Yeah.
I'm in the Wild West.
Yeah.
But I'm envisioning a big crowd that I'm shouting to, and actually, because also if you are almost like hand selling, right? You're trying to really deliberately pick people out. That's emotionally vulnerable to say like, I think confidently my book appeals to these people, and I'm going to put in the time and effort to work at finding them and to appealing to them. And then maybe someone does turn around and says like, you compared your books to like Agatha Christie or whoever it is, like that's embarrassing for you. You're terrible. You're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was trying my best. But I think for me, if I can feel authentic enough, even if someone were to criticize and say it doesn't fit the bill of this, I'd be like, I'm sorry you felt that way. Like this part, I think I feel confident it does.
Yeah.
And so it is an emotionally vulnerable thing that you have to feel like you know the market and your books and your audience, all those pieces well enough to make that pitch towards saying this part of my book would appeal to these people genuinely.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to writing like you've been doing, like writing copy and coming up with concepts for social media stuff that is really specific about certain things in the books. Like I'm really looking forward to it. And I think that's probably what I'm going to spend the rest of this month, although I'm obviously doing other work, but I'm going to spend a lot of time this month really thinking about that and having fun with it. Like I love making graphics for social media. I love taking pictures of my books, and I really want to come up with a good strategy for next year that feels authentic and feels like I'm putting like my best self into it without the negative stuff that I've been holding on to. I just want to be starting fresh and feeling like I'm making the right choices rather than making choices with like tinged with fear, which is just not fun.
Yeah. And that is it. I think I've always been waiting to like suddenly become that really confident version of like of the person you see online, right? I've been waiting for somehow to write a book that's quote unquote good enough that I will feel really confident about it. But that has ignored the fact that I can only sell things that I feel authentically positive about. And I think we come back to this so often, right? It's about knowing yourself and knowing how you work, and that I really wish I had. I mean, I say this, and we'll probably look back at an earlier episode, and we've had this as that conversation before. But like, I really wish I had acknowledged previously that authenticity is such an important thing for me. And now I'm saying this, I think we have this conversation before, but I think we have to come over these same topics again and again, like with a different layer of understanding. And so it does feel like not only do I have to be authentic, but I have things now with this new series that I have worked on very deliberately that I can be authentic about, that I feel like I've intentionally put in, that I know people will like, and I can confidently tell them that they will like it and why. Which feels so different.
Yeah. I know. I think we've come so far, even though we do touch on the same topics continuously. It's because you have to look at the same things, like as you go down the track, to take all the lessons that you've been learning as you've been running the business, and then applying it to like all of these topics that we cover. And each time we go over it, I feel like we're chipping away another bit of our armor. It's not really armor; it's just like chipping away at the wall that we're blocking ourselves off with. In my head, I can see this thing that I'm thinking. Yeah. Like we put a wall around ourselves, and every time we come back to it, we're chipping it away. Soon we will just have clear sailing in front of us. Let's go back to the sea.
Clear sailing down the river in which someone is panning for gold. Unwisely.
Yeah, if you can. And this is why I don't write fancy poetry books.
This is why we write and we don't talk generally. Like, I need to be able to delete these phrases from my books.
Yeah. Oh God, life. So I feel like we've done a good job with this. I feel like we've covered off a lot of stuff, and I really feel like I've turned a corner after our conversation yesterday and this conversation today. I'm feeling confident. Are you any more analogies, or are you happy for me to wrap this up?
Good. I'm all out of metaphors for today, but I will think of some more for next week.
Fantastic. So for next week's topic, we are ending this series on how to believe in yourself with an episode on luck, preparation, and opportunity. Do you have any initial thoughts on this?
I forgot I was going to have to answer this one. I thought it was you. Yes, I do. I really wish I'd looked up more about this, because I heard this on like an Instagram video from like Bowen Yang recently where he was talking about this, but it just clicked, right? The concept of there's so much in this business that is not really about going from A to Z. It's about just like making sure you are as prepared as possible for a lot of different aspects of the career. And I think we've both had things recently that have not been things we would have planned if we were making a really clear, like, I'm going to go from like this pattern to this pattern, January, February, March, May, I'll do all these things. We have both been doing lots of general preparation and making ourselves better and understanding ourselves more and putting ourselves in the right place at the right time, and various things have happened, and I'm not sure we'll necessarily be able to talk about like lots of details of things next week, but some details of things next week we should be able to talk about, and also just generally kind of the way in which we have been able to position ourselves for new and interesting things to happen that would not you couldn't have made them happen.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's going to be a big part of the conversation next week, is the preparation is something that we are all more than likely doing every day in this business. The luck and the opportunity are the random things that happen that you couldn't stumble upon unless you had the preparation and all that jazz. So yeah, I think it's going to be a fun conversation. I can't wait to talk about all of the woo-woo things like manifesting and all of that stuff. That's definitely going to come up next week. Apologies if you are not into that, but if you are into that, next week's going to be for you.
Enjoy. Yeah.
Yes. So thank you very much, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram, subscribe to this podcast, and leave a review if you wish. And we will be back next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Pen to Paycheck Authors.
Stay tuned for our next episode, and don't forget to subscribe to learn how to write your way to financial success.